Welcome to Wizards of the Nebula.
Role-playing.
And in this adventure, the love of sci-fi. Welcome to Wizards of the Nebula.
Roleplay.
And we're going to be talking about our love of sci-fi. You know, we've done a couple episodes on Terrain, which was Sci-Fi Terrain.
Starship right there.
And some sci-fi systems that you can play.
Yep.
Get into.
RPG.
And then now we're going to talk a little bit about why we love sci-fi.
Yeah. Our general appreciation and love for the sci-fi genre.
So why is it?
Well,
why do you love sci-fi?
I guess because, you know, I'll give it to you this way. There's that scene in Star Wars where Luke is standing outside his home, his Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru's home, and its sun is going down, and he's standing there and he's looking out over the horizon to the desert beyond, and it's sunset and the music comes up. And he's got that look in his eyes like, man, I just wish I was somewhere else besides here. And I think that appeals to every kid who was ever born in a nowheresville small town in this country, looking out at the horizon and saying to yourself, man, I just wish I was somewhere else where I could have adventure and every day was going to be different except every day being the same. So that's kind of where it comes from me.
Yeah. I grew up in the 60s. There was an old TV show called SciFi Theater. And even though a lot of it was kind of horror, it had a lot of, you know, sci-fi tropes like The Fly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, or Godzilla, or a lot of those. Or, you know, alien invasions, The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, so you had this sci-fi stuff, and it was like, wow, this is cool. Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon. So, you know, that was kind of my introduction, watching these old 40s, 50s movies.
Oh yeah.
You know, on Saturday TV, you know, and just sitting there and, you know, like, wow, this is cool, you know, back when TV was good.
Yeah. No kidding. I mean, so, you know, a lot of it comes from, you know, movies or comic books or stuff like that. You know, you see old movies from the 40s and 50s, Day the Earth Stood Still, you know, The Flying Saucer Men, that kind of stuff, Invaders from Mars. You know, a lot of those movies were sort of like tropes for the Cold War, you know. And you could recognize that's what it is. You know, we're the Americans, the aliens are the Russians, that kind of stuff. I always appreciated sci-fi that moved past that. And I didn't get into that until I started reading books. And I started reading, you know, as a kid I read all the Tom Swift books, where it was always Tom Swift and his flying arrow car and things like this that they did. But when I started reading like Andre Norton books and Harry Harrison and Robert Heinlein, those stories, even though they contain a lot of the same sci-fi tropes that, you know, we see today and a lot of the same social issues, they seem to take you out farther to worlds beyond just this one. You know, it isn't just a future Earth, it's a future planet. Maybe in a system, you know, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 light years away, where things are really different, where aliens are really different, and maybe our encounters won't be warlike. Maybe they'll be peaceful. And I think a lot of times then that's when you kind of get to the Star Trek thing, you know, because we started watching Star Trek.
Yeah, when it was in syndication.
Yeah, not all those encounters in Star Trek were bad. You know, a lot of times they encountered aliens that they tried to understand.
Yeah, Monster of the Week, they sometimes called them. That was more season 3 than...
Yeah. At first, Star Trek was meant to be one of those shows where we were going to, you know, talk about scientific understanding, you know, technology, that sort of thing. And then it kind of cheapened out, you know, because producers, you know, and everything, they got a hold of it. Then it was Monster of the Week, and that's where a lot of shows get. They just degenerate into something like that. Yeah. Cheap schlock after a while. Yeah,
and then, of course, in the 70s, we moved into Star Wars. And, of course, as we mentioned in one of the other episodes, Space 1999.
Yeah, Space 1999. Great idea. That's Jerry Anderson, you know, a British sci-fi producer. He produced UFO. He produced which was a TV series I never saw, but only in little snippets now.
Yeah.
He produced another a series, a series which I can't think of now, but we'll look into it. But then also Space 1999, which was just really a mind-boggling. I remember watching that on like Sunday afternoons when they would just put it in as filler, and seeing the eagles flying, and I was like, what in the world is that? Wow, that is amazing, that kind of stuff. It was just really fun,
Yeah, and of course you move into the horror genre of sci-fi with Aliens and Predator.
Alien, yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So, Alien will always stick with me as one of those movies that not only did it shock me into the modern era of horror in sci-fi, but it catalyzed my interest in sci-fi imagery and storytelling. Okay, it's essentially a haunted house in space, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, nothing really complex than that. But you get this idea, and of course a lot of Alien is taken from an Italian movie called Planet of the Vampires, okay? You have to kind of keep that in mind. It's not 100% original. But the visual imagery of the story is so compelling. The Nostromo, landing on the planet, LV-246, I think it's called, or something like that. And, it's this primordial planet where there's a crashed starship and they investigate it. And it's full of these eggs and what the eggs do to people, the xenomorph and then the big alien. And the fact, Ridley Scott did such a good job shooting in all the shadows with all the jump scares and the great acting of some of the greatest actors, really. Yaphet Kotto, Harry Dean Stanton, Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, Veronica Cartwright. Man, I mean, Ian Holm. Some of the better character actors.
And then even in the second one, where you have
even
Bill
in
Paxton.
Yeah, even in the second
Game
one.
over, man! Game over!
The second one really, to me, is more like a war movie,
Yeah.
But the first one is really where it set the bar for that kind of imagery. And I remember just being so shocked after seeing that. I stayed awake with the lights on for hours and hours and hours because I was so hyped up from that movie. But think about the way the inside of the Nostromo was, kind of dirty. There's water dripping everywhere out of the circulators. They didn't
crap everywhere.
Yeah, junk everywhere. They didn't wear fancy clothes. They wore their old ship suits. Everybody was kind of unshaven. The women always looked kind of greasy. The guys always looked kind of filthy. That kind of stuff. And then, when they're sitting around eating their food and they're just kind of like eating this regurgitated, chopped up, whatever the hell it was that they're eating and drinking. And then you have the murderous android, and then you have the AI system running the ship. And in one of the better sci-fi tropes that they turn on its head at the end, the heroine is a woman, Sigourney Weaver.
Right.
And it's like, wow, this is really cool. The hero of the story is a woman.
Right.
That's great, because you never saw stuff like that, ever.
Well, the great thing, too, with sci-fi, if you're playing RPGs, is there's endless amounts of ideas. Whether you've got a xenomorph or something on a ship. If you look at the Warhammer series, the Gene Stealers are kind of a basis off of Alien.
Yeah.
That they invade a ship and take over, and they capture people and turn them into Gene Stealers.
Yep.
So you've got that, or you've got the planet where the people go down and maybe there's people already living there, but somebody else has claimed it, and they want these people off their land so they can mine it and destroy it.
Yeah.
Avatar.
Great storyline. Great storyline. Of course, a metaphor for Native American issues, and also like issues in the Amazon or in Africa or colonialism, that sort of thing. Yeah. Sci-fi is one of those things that you can take what we have from now, our social issues from our time period, and place them there, or you can dream up some new ones. So like in Star Wars, and we came of age in the Star Wars era.
Yep.
We both saw the first one in the theater.
So it's kind of funny, real quickly, with Star Wars. When I went with my cousin David, who was 4 months older than I was, and his brother Mike. And I remember coming out of the theater, and David was just like, "Wow, that was just so great," and I'm like, "Yeah, it was okay."
Typical. So it had come around.
Typical. How's that typical?
And it had come around and into our theaters, and it had been at the drive-in first, and no one had wanted to go see it because they didn't know what it was. But it came back around, and it finally got into the actual theater itself, the actual sit-down theater. And I'd heard talk about it from kids at school, and I'd seen some stuff in magazines, and I begged and begged and begged and begged my dad to take me, and he was reluctant because he didn't want to do it, but finally he took me to go see it. So my dad and I sat down in the theater, you know, and then from the opening with the music and everything like that, you know, he was just kind of sitting there watching it, and I was just like, oh my goodness, look at this. You know, just start, you know, X-Wings and the battle, you know, yeah, it was just crazy, and the lightsabers and Chewbacca and Darth Vader. And so we finished up, we get back outside, and we're sitting in the truck, and this is in the winter time, and you're waiting for the truck to warm up. And I was
North Dakota, right?
Yeah, North Dakota. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome, awesome, awesome. And my dad's just like, well, I don't know what I understand about a lot of that. What was that Bigfoot guy? And I kind of figured that out. And then Han Solo, that cannot be his name. And then he wouldn't say anything. And it took me a long time to realize that in my dad's generation, Han Solo is like slang for masturbation.
Well, it's Han Solo. Han Solo.
Yeah, Han Solo is like slang for masturbation. And I was like, it took me for a long time to like, oh my God. My dad was like, why in the world would they name some guy Han Solo? That's horrible. But the very next day, my dad went down to the record store and bought the music, and he liked the music, and he played it a lot. And, you know, that's the thing about Star Wars. There's a lot of really engaging stuff in it. A lot of really engaging imagery, a lot of really engaging music, engaging characters. And it's a franchise that is still alive and well today. The original Star Wars came out in 1977. It was filmed in 1976, okay? It came out in 1977. It is now 2023. That's an old franchise. That's 50 years ago.
Yeah.
You know?
It's still going.
And it's still going.
Yeah, because we've you know, you watch Disney, you've got Andor and Obi-Wan and
Mandalorian,
Rebels, Clone Wars.
Yeah, Clone Wars.
Ahsoka.
Yeah, all that stuff, you know. It's still going strong today, which kind of is like the enduring power of sci-fi.
And when you go to conventions,
yes,
people are still dressing up as Jedi or
Darth Vader.
Stormtroopers, smugglers.
Yeah, smugglers, all that. You know, it's still an enduring thing. And to give it even more credit, you still see Trekkies at fan cons.
Yeah.
Now, Star Trek came out in 1966. That's even older than Star Wars.
But most of them were next generation, so you see the Picards and the Datas.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you don't see
so much of the Kirks and the
stuff.
Spocks. You do once in a while.
Yeah, that's true. But it endures too. And so there is something very powerful about sci-fi that really endures over time. You know, and what do you think that is? What do you think is that makes people so enamored with the idea of science fiction or science fantasy?
Well, you know, so much of sci-fi has become reality, because if you look at Star Trek, they had their flip communicators, flip phones. And now they've got the little device that they push, you know, it's Bluetooth. Mm-hmm. So there's so much of the technology that was in Star Trek that has become reality.
Yep.
And it's, you know, there's science fantasy and then there's science fiction. And science fantasy is, it will never really come to be. Science fiction is what can come. Mm-hmm. And the possibility. So it's what we're looking forward to our future. If we looked at our grandparents, you know, I thought about this many years ago, that my grandmother was born before airplanes. Yeah. You know, and how she saw airplanes come into being, and she saw radio and TV and automobiles. Yep. And, you know, mass production and all this stuff, everything that she saw in her life. Yeah. In her 90 years of life. And your own mother, the same way. You know, if you think back. So all the stuff that they would have thought as fiction is now reality. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Science reality. Science reality, yeah. I mean, my grandfather, who was born in like 1900, he got to live to see the moon landings. He got to see microcomputers. He got to see the space station. All that stuff. And he was born back in a time when the way to get around was ride a horse or ride a train. Right.
That's
I mean,
it.
we even look at our own selves.
Yeah.
We didn't have phones. You know, your phone was this big
Dial-up phone.
You had party lines.
Party lines,
You know, so you
yeah.
pick up the phone and somebody else is talking.
Yeah.
You know, so you had to share a phone line with people.
Yeah.
And in your cars, you had AM radio.
That's it.
If you were lucky, you had AM radio.
Yeah.
You didn't have air conditioning.
No. Our TVs, our screens on our TVs were this big and they weren't flat.
And they were black and white. And You
Yeah.
had to get up to change the channel.
Yeah.
So, you know, you think about what we've seen in our own lifetime.
Yeah. You know, the thing is human beings are really adaptable. I mean, our generation has really adapted to the science that comes along.
Yeah.
Think about it, how attuned we are to computer technology, even technology like this that we're doing with you to see us now.
YouTube.
You know, this isn't on like some old film projector that we're over there cranking. It's like, okay, action.
Super 8 millimeter.
You know, no, this isn't anything like that. This is all digital technology.
Yeah.
As old as we are, we're still able to embrace digital
And
technology
how much
and
will
make it
change
work.
in our future, what we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
And what, you know, you, our viewers, will see. So
Exactly.
that's why there's a kind of a love of sci-fi.
Yeah.
Is what predicts the future
Yeah.
and sets the standard. Because a lot of what was done in Star Wars or Star Trek, people are saying, hey, let's do that.
Yeah.
And they've done it.
Yeah, they've come
You
about
know,
with it.
There's things that we haven't gotten, like the transporters. Doesn't mean that we ever won't. Warp technology doesn't mean that we won't.
Yeah, but okay, the thing is, okay, people are still working on transporters.
Yeah.
And they're able to move bits of matter from place to place. It's just
Right.
not feasible. And then warp technology has been proven it could exist with enough power.
Yeah.
It could theoretically exist. So theoretical physics explains a lot of what happens in Star Trek, you know, or in Star Wars, or in anything. That kind
Instead of, you
yeah.
know, you got the hyperspace, well, now they're thinking wormholes. So,
Yeah,
you know,
wormhole
you've been in
drives.
space, so you've got point A and point B, and it's 10 billion miles from point A to point B, but if you take the piece of paper and fold it,
Yeah, there
then
it
you
is.
can jump
It's
point A to point
instantaneous.
B instantaneously.
Yeah, you know, that kind of technology, you know, hyperdrive, just like in Star Wars, you know, with the Millennium Falcon engaging hyperdrive. It's feasible, you know, and I think that's the enduring aspects of sci-fi is that people can look at it and think, wow, a better day is coming, a better day. You know, a lot of people, I've heard this many times, a lot of people like Star Trek so much because in Star Trek universe, okay, it doesn't matter if you're black, doesn't matter if you're gay, female, everybody has, you know, alien, everybody has spaces in there to fit into, and they fit in equally.
Yeah, and we've put aside our differences
Yeah.
to become a united world.
Yeah, a united world. Earth is a united world, a federation of planets.
Yeah.
You know, we've put aside our nationalist differences, and we've become one group, humanity.
Yeah. Which is a great
It's a
which is
great concept.
concept.
It's a great concept. You know, I know it's tough for Americans because of American exceptionalism. Everybody likes to think that we're better than everybody else. But you know what? We're really not. We're not.
We're all
We're not.
just one
Yeah,
human
we're all
race.
just human. You know, all just human beings. Okay. And you know, the idea of sci-fi is that in the future we're going to finally work that out, and we're going to get rid of racial differences and stuff like that, and we're going to be the kind of people that can really accomplish a lot because we're united.
Yep. As a united front, you can do more.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're going to end this episode of Wizards of the Nebula.
Role playing.
And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, leave your comments if you have, you know, why you have a love of sci-fi, if you have a love of sci-fi, your experiences in sci-fi gaming, and you know, whether it's even computer gaming and things like that. We'd like to hear your stories. So anyway, like, share, subscribe, spread the word,
And keep on adventuring.
keep on adventuring.